It's Monday, July 27th, 2015. I'm Rim.
I am a Scott.
And this is an episode of Geeknights. Tonight we're going to talk about when things go away. You know, like services and things just disappear.
Or when I go away.
Yeah, couldn't really come up with a better title for this one.
Let's do this.
So I biked like 130 miles this weekend.
It's many miles.
It was a good weekend for biking, actually.
Mm.
In fact, we were thinking like, we'll make some video. Like, we got a big backlog of video to make. We'll make some video on Sunday. And I was like, Scott, let's make some video on Sunday. And then on Sunday...
I was waiting for you to be like, hey, let's make some video, but you didn't, so I played a video game all day.
Yep. And I was like, I'm going to make some video after I go biking. And then I just went biking all day.
I'm biking all day Saturday, but not Sunday.
Yep. I biked to Rockaway with Emily. And then we walked around and like stood in the water for a while. Then we biked back up home. And
Why didn't you go in the water?
Because we didn't bring our swimsuits because we didn't think we'd swim. But then we got there and we wanted to swim. And then next time we're bringing our swimsuits.
Mm.
So then the way back wasn't long enough, I guess. So we looped around Prospect Park a bunch and then went home.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went back out again, like back the way we came to go to some pig roast thing that was down in Williamsburg with some friends. That was cool.
Mm.
But the pig roast was not as, I could have had more pig.
It was
Mostly a beer roast with pig. The pig was super good, but I could have eaten more.
Whatever.
I feel like it seems like this bar, what they did is they got some other company to come and just like roast a pig, and then they just sold tickets like it was a big event. But really, it was just a restaurant that had another tiny restaurant with contractors inside of it running one item on a separate menu.
So
they didn't put a lot, like the pig was like, effort was put into the pig part, but the restaurant did not put effort into the whole, like, this is a pig roast aspect of it.
So, there's the John Brown barbecue right over here.
I do know, because
which is
Cliffs and LIC members get a discount once a week,
but
so we can eat there.
it's pretty good there, but sometimes the service is not.
The service there is super,
The service there is not, but the cornbread is.
Yeah.
Right?
Problem is, you walk in there in the evening, like, we're out of
food,
everything.
Right. So there's a place down near we found using Google Maps near the game store where we play Netrunner called Fet Sao. I don't know if you heard of that. It's mildly
Fet Sao?
Yeah, it's mildly famous.
I've heard of that place.
Yeah. We went to that place after a Netrunner tournament 2 weeks ago.
And that was
they did not even have cornbread. They just give you like dinner rolls that come from a bag from the grocery store. But everything else, it's by the pound, and it is like all the other things besides cornbread, which they didn't even have. Maybe they have it other times. They didn't have it the day we went. Way better than John Brown barbecue. More money, but the ribs, the sauce, the beef, everything was.
All right, I'm into this.
So, and they even have free water. We could fill up our water bottles.
Yep.
So maybe next Sunday there's a Netrunner. I don't know. Is there anything else happening next Sunday?
Next Sunday?
Yeah.
Possibly a bunch of things. Maybe some of our friends might bike here, and then we'll have a weekend of hanging out, or possibly go out to Rhode Island, or maybe also go to the shore. Everything happens next weekend.
Well, next Sunday is August 1st, 2nd, right?
Yeah, I guess.
It's actually August then. So Summer Streets is Saturday. But yeah, on Sunday, we can, after the Netrunner tournament, you can go over there again. I could eat that every 2 weeks and then die happy, even if it shortens my life by a few years.
So for once, it being Monday, we have some science news.
Oh, my God.
Because Geeknights Monday is supposed to be technology and science.
We don't know anything about science, though.
Once we got an astronomer on the show, our friend Timo knows stuff about stuff, but we're not really scientists. Like, my knowledge of science kind of caps out at AP Biology and AP Physics that I took in high school.
And computer science is science in name only. I mean, there are some people who do research and experiments and follow the scientific method in regards to computers.
Is that you?
No, that is not me.
So, what you remember the 5 tastes, the unique tastes that the human tongue can detect independently, correct?
Sweetness.
Yep.
Saltiness. Yep. Sourness.
Yep.
Bitterness.
Yep. So those are the 4 that we knew for a long time.
Right.
Not that long ago, a 5th one was discovered.
The hippie taste of umami.
Umami. Yes.
It is the thing that only a hippie or a foodie would say.
That basically is just the taste of MSG.
If you say that word, then your brow is like taped to your forehead. Like,
Yeah, but it's a thing. It's a real thing.
yeah, I mean, it's not, but it's sort of like, yeah, utility kilt is comfortable, but you're wearing it.
So scientists like at Purdue super recently have real evidence that there is in fact a sixth taste.
How do they determine that it's actually a different taste?
Oh, real easily,
Like,
actually.
what's the experiment like?
The experiment's always been the same. You make a series of uniform materials, like a uniform paste of some kind. So the texture is the same no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And you compose each of these of one specific type of chemical or a combination of chemicals, and you ask people to categorize them based on taste.
Mm-hmm.
And you control to make sure they're not using odor. Maybe they don't have an odor. Whatever you do, so that it's purely based on the receptors in the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the sixth taste is fat.
Okay.
Now, normally, it was always assumed that humans taste fat because of its texture. It has that like kind of soapy feeling, like that kind of like slippery, smooth.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, no, it turns out we can actually taste the fat directly. And even better, we never noticed this before because humans, if you ask them to categorize, you give them a bunch of paste and say, here are 5 categories to put these things in, the 5 basic things.
Mm-hmm.
They'll categorize all the fat along with the bitter.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give them 6 categories and one of them is called fat or fatty, they will reliably put all the fatty things in that separate fatty category when
Right, but I
previously
mean-
they put it under bitter.
I mean, okay, so an apple is sweet, right?
Yeah.
And a banana is sweet,
Yeah.
and a bread is sweet.
That depends
Especially
on the
if
bread.
I mean, a sugar bread, sure, like a melon pond.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't taste the same.
No, they don't because it's much like sound, Scott. Your actual sensation of taste is
But I would still, if you wrote the categories on the paper as apple, melon pond, and banana.
but there's a difference there. Those are complex, manifold flavors that are caused by these 6 basic things in different quantities.
So if you take these 6 pastes that they are using in this experiment and
Yep.
combine them in the correct proportion, you could create any flavor, including banana
Yes,
or, I don't know, foie
Yes.
gras.
that is in fact true.
I would like to see that proven.
Take
Those 6 pastes and combine them in the correct proportion to make banana.
Now, here's the problem is that the human sensation has 2 other factors: the texture, which we use for a lot of reasons. A lot of people have trouble with certain kinds of textures, and the smell. So there's 3 sets of things that determine our taste. But it is interesting that we have a specific receptor for fat. And further,
Oh, like you're holding your nose and eating it.
Yeah,
and
you'll
you
still
can't
taste it.
tell. I gotcha.
so here's the thing.
I gotcha.
Apparently, fat tastes like shit.
Uh-huh.
Humans categorically reject food that triggers this in any significant quantity because the only time our tongue is stimulated by that receptor a whole bunch without the other ones overpowering it is rancid and decaying meat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's why humans tended to put it in the bitter category.
Mm.
Oh, and while we're on this topic, you know that map of where you taste different things on your tongue?
Is bullshit?
Complete bullshit. Always been bullshit. There was never any evidence of that.
Yeah, I mean, swimming after eating doesn't give you cramps either. That's
You
also
watched the
bullshit.
same video that I watched recently, I think.
I mean, I think I knew before that it was bullshit, but it's something my mom would always stop me from going in the pool after I ate.
My mom was always like, yeah, that's BS. Just go swimming.
But I think I already knew it was BS. I was just reminded that it was BS.
Well, I remember as a kid, I was like, wait, so what if I just get in the tub? Will I like get a cramp just sitting there?
And oh no, a cramp. Big deal. I want to go in the pool now. It's warm. The sun's out. It's going down soon. I just ate.
Yep. The only reason I ever had to wait to actually go in the pool is because my dad was testing the pH and like doing all that stuff.
Or I had to skim it first.
Yep. I'd jump in without skimming it. Skim it later. Skimming's
I don't want to swim in a bunch of leaves though.
I was more worried about the pH.
And you jump off that ladder. Oh, leaves in the face.
Nah.
Not good.
So, a second science news. So, Scott, did you ever study any quantum theory?
I know the things a layman knows about quantum physics, but not just a layman, a nerd layman who's watched some, read some issues of National Geographic,
right.
or watched some TV shows on Discovery or PBS.
So,
and
like,
read a few fictions and maybe like one or two non-fictions, like a Stephen Hawking book
so
a long time ago that I forget most of.
Yeah, so what I'm making clear here, because I'm in a similar boat, we barely, if at all, know what we're about to talk about. So you're 2 or 3
I know a
of the
lot more about chemistry than I know about quantum physics.
At least a few of you are going to be really unhappy with us for the next, 4 minutes
so I'll
or
just
so.
say less to be less stupid. Because when
So-
you don't know about something, people on the earth generally don't learn this lesson. It's a really good lesson to learn. When you don't know about something, don't talk.
There's a cyanide in happiness not that long ago where a guy is a guy's at a computer and a guy's standing behind him just bitching about a bunch of stuff. Like his life's going bad. He's talking about all his problems. And the guy who was sitting there quietly listening just turns around and says, "You know what a wise man once said that's relevant to your situation?" And the guy's like, "What?" And he's like, "Nothing." So, quarks, right? So quarks, as far as we can tell, are basically the fundamental particle.
I thought there was something even smaller.
What?
I thought there was something smaller.
No.
All right, shows what I know.
Well, in the very least, quarks.
I already said I didn't know anything.
Quarks seem to be fundamental, and combination of them make up our baryons and mesons, like the higher, proton.
Right, a proton is
combinations-
3 quarks, and a neutron is some number or something, and
So, did you take any? Well, but here's what I remember from high school quantum mechanics.
so even if you remember correctly, which is a long time ago,
This is
that
circa-
information, if you remembered it correctly, is 15, 20 years out of date.
Yeah, what I know about quantum physics is pretty much what I did in 1999 and 2000 in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably mixed in with that is stuff I read in Slashdot articles in college.
Yep.
That's my knowledge here. So, you know how there's charges, right? Like positive and negative. So an atom by default has to have a neutral charge. If it doesn't, then
Well,
it's an ion,
it
something
could be
different.
some sort of isotope with an extra electron.
No, it's gonna be an ion. It's not gonna be charged
ion,
in that
right.
case.
Isotope is a different number of neutrons. But
Yes.
yeah, it could have an extra electron here or there.
But if it has extra electrons, it's gonna have extra protons to have a neutral charge.
Well, it'll be a different atom.
It'll
if
be
it had
charged.
extra protons.
Yes, and it'll be charged stable.
Mhm.
So quarks are the same way for another attribute that we talk about with colors. So there's 3 colors of quarks, and they each also have their anti-color. So there's 6, 3, and then 3 anti. Kind of like how there's 1 positive charge and 1 negative charge with electric. Aren't quarks 2/3, 1/3? They're not.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Pretty sure quarks are a 2/3 of a charge or a 1/3 of a charge, and they got to add up to a whole. Anyway, we're not talking about electricity. We're talking about the color stuff. So in the color stuff, to have a stable higher order particle, what I remember learning is that the color has to turn to white.
Yep.
So either it's white because you have one of each quark of either the normal, the quarks, or one of each of the antiquarks, so the color will be white, or have a quark and it's anticolor quark too.
Yep.
So I remember when I learned this,
They're not actually different colors. It's just a symbol that it's just something that happens.
well, there's
to
no such thing as color. So
Right, obviously. It's just a symbology, representation that happens to line up.
yes, but they have this attribute that we call color. So dumb young Rim and pretty much any layman will say, well, what if I had 4 quarks or 6 quarks, but they still add up to white? Couldn't that be a thing?
Yes.
And it's interesting that in quantum mechanics, the layman well, the rules say this, so what about that? Yeah, totally true. And we just apparently with the LHC discovered proof of pentaquarks.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works, right? You come up with some rules and you say, well, these rules explain the things that we are seeing. Wait, but those rules that explain the thing that you are seeing, if those rules are true, then we should also be able to see this thing that we've never seen before. Let's see if we can see that. If we can, then those rules are probably the right rules. And if we can't, those rules are wrong. And we need to come up with a different explanation for the things we already saw that also includes the new thing that we just, saw or didn't see. So we've had these rules that have explained all the things we've seen so far. And those rules suggest we should be able to see this new thing. And we did, which means those rules we came up with are more right than rules we came up with before.
So this is super
That is
cool
science.
because it implies that a whole wing of quantum stuff around weird numbers of quarks, or even just like a bunch of gluons together without any quarks in them, which I think, according to this article, we call them glue balls because
Nice.
they're just gluons.
Nice.
So, yeah, a whole wing of quantum mechanics seems to have a little more evidence. However, that's what you get from reading the summaries. Here's the actual title of the paper with the experiment. I don't even know how to read this.
I don't know what the...
Observation of
Greek
J
what?
over weird VP resonances
It's a Greek
consistent
character. Isn't it a
with
phi? What the
Pentaquarks
hell is
states
that?
in
It's a U with a sword
in
through it.
a whole bunch of math decays.
What is that Greek letter?
Observations of exotic structures in mass of...
Copy and paste that Greek letter into Google so it'll take
which
us to
one? There's a bunch of them.
the U with the sword through it.
You want that one?
Yeah, that's the one I don't know.
I love that I can copy paste that stuff. There's psi.
Psi, not phi. Psi.
Yeah, psi.
There you go.
So yeah, science news.
Psi waves.
Psi beam.
Okay, so tech news. Today, we're recording this on Monday because of Monday show, but most people listen to Monday shows because we put them out at night. Listen to the morning commute on Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, guess what? Today, Tuesday, the Black Tuesday. It's always, I guess it's not actually Black Tuesday. Black Tuesday is the second Tuesday of the month. But anyway, July 28th, Windows 10.
I'm actually kind of excited because...
Released. If you sign up for the free Windows 10, you can get it.
Yep. Apparently you'll be able to get it even if you didn't sign up, but you might have to wait a little while.
Right. So the way we've confirmed that it works, right, is in your little notification area, you sign up, for the update, which I did on all 3 of my Windows computers. And then that computer somehow is going to get the update, right? And then once you've updated, I guess you're going to do an in-place upgrade just from the internet.
Which, honestly, in the past,
Has
I
worked
would...
okay-ish.
Yeah, okay-ish. I have never in my life been comfortable updating Windows in place on a system
Right.
I actually use.
Well, if you were smart and put Windows in a separate partition or drive based on your computing situation, you are, it has been confirmed, going to be able to create some sort of boot media, like a USB stick or something, and then
Yep.
be able to do a clean install. This has been confirmed.
That's why I kept tweeting that, seriously, guys, if you have a Windows 7 computer and Windows is not running on an SSD because it's an old computer, I mean, SSDs are, it's kind of recent that you can buy an SSD that's affordable, that's big enough. Buy an SSD, like a 256 gigabyte one.
If your computer has room for it.
Yeah, they're way cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Upgrade Windows, make the install media, reinstall Windows onto that drive. Your computer will get like twice as fast.
Yep. Yeah, I've got an SSD with Windows and program files. So, and I've got a bunch of other hard drives that just have storage, and I have a second SSD that's just for swapping when editing videos and shit.
Yeah, I have that plus a few more.
Anyway, so I'm going to unplug the storage drives. I know Windows won't fuck with them, but just in case. Then upgrade Windows on just the SSD that has Windows. I can reinstall all the program files. Who cares if I delete those, right? And that helps because then I'll be sure to get everything up to date and be able to make sure that all those programs work well with Windows 10 and uninstall them if they don't, right?
Yep. You also
And
have
also,
the nice...
there's a bunch of programs you've installed over time
You don't use anymore.
that you don't use, and it's like you don't know you don't use them, and you don't bother to go uninstall them. So this way, you're only going to install. I always tell this to people, and they don't listen to me. Right? Is they go, and whether it's a phone or their computer, they got like a long list of programs, and they're like, "What app should I install? What program should I get?" And they just install a whole bunch of shit. Don't do that. When you install Windows 10 and you're going to do a clean install because you listen to us, right? Don't even install like Chrome until you actually go at the moment where you say you're going to use it. That is when you install it. So it's like you're going to install Steam at some point, but don't immediately go and get Steam, right? Install Windows 10 and then just start using your computer as you would use it. And then when you get to the point where it's like, I want to play a video game and I do not have Steam, when you think to go click on the Steam icon, it's not there. That is the moment you should install Steam.
Now, realistically, there's a few things I do always install right away because I
mean,
know
you're
I
going to
will
install
use it.
Chrome within probably the first minute and Steam
So
within the
here's my
first 10
list.
minutes.
Off the top of my head, the things I will install immediately when I upgrade my first computer and then do this thing and
Your
clean install.
Adobe stuff.
Adobe stuff,
Chrome.
Steam, Chrome, Notepad++ because I just use the shit out of that thing.
I use Vim.
Putty. Well, I guess we might not need Putty anymore.
Maybe.
There's rumors of an SSH client.
Right, but it has to be in there already.
Yeah, if it's not already in there, I'm installing Putty.
Right, but I mean, don't install Putty until the moment you're about to SSH.
I'm going to need Putty to an SSH like that day, most likely.
Right, but don't do it immediately. Do it the later in the day when you do it.
I know I'm going to need it. I'm going to install it.
It's a good strategy, trust me, because then you basically, what happens is even if you get it perfectly right and you only install the programs you actually use because you made a list and you know what, you tracked your usage or something, right? What happens is when you do that initial setup, you're going to spend a whole bunch of time installing all these programs and it's going to take like an hour. If you just wait, you'll spread out those installs over a day or even a week.
The one trouble is
they'll be really
some
quick.
things, like some games, take like 2 hours to install.
Well, good. Don't waste those 2 hours unless you're actually going to play the game.
Well, no, you start them and then they go in the background.
Well, if you know you're going to play it.
Yeah.
Like, Counter-Strike is probably a safe bet for you, right?
Yeah, Counter-Strike, Civ 5, Necrodancer, actually, because now that it's done, I've been playing the shit out of that game.
All right.
So yeah, there's
that's what you got to know about Windows 10 update.
And there are two newses about Windows 10 that are very important. One, Windows 10, if you have the Home Edition, Windows updates will be automatic and mandatory. You cannot defer them. You cannot pause them. You cannot undo them. Your computer will just reboot. Fuck you.
As far as I know, that's a good thing. A lot of people do not do Windows updates and then they get fucked.
I have zero problem with this because one, if you're using Windows Home, and this bothers
Chrome
you.
Chrome updates this way, and no one gives a shit. But when other things, make you manually update, and they try to become the Chrome model, people complain, and it's like, how come you're not complaining about Chrome? They already do this.
Well, even better. The most common complaint is, I have a special Snowflake use case where my production system, whatever. Yeah.
Buy Pro.
If you buy Windows Pro, then you have that capability.
Right. I mean, I assume because I have Windows 7 Pro on my desktop that I'm going to get Pro on that desktop, and my others have Home Premium, so I assume they're going to get Home.
So actually,
but I'm probably on the Pro. I'm going to turn on the auto updates because I update everything anyway.
Yeah. So Windows 10 Pro, you can delay them, but you cannot actually prevent them. But that's fine. That's what you should be doing.
Fine also.
And if your complaint is, but I'm an enterprise
as long as it doesn't
Snowflake,
restart my computer while I'm using it, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, so pay for Pro if you don't want that to happen. And if you need like lockdown control of a bunch of other people's Windows computers,
you could already do that.
Yeah, the enterprise Windows
server.
crap will do the same thing.
Active Directory has been doing that since like Windows 95 NT days.
So you can still stage your production updates into a UAT environment if you really need to.
Whatever.
Now, pretty much everyone complaining about this is super butter for no good reason. So I defy anyone to give us an actually legitimate good reason. The only one I can see at all is that some people are worried that Microsoft might at some point remove functionality or lock things down in a way that you can't prevent.
All right, fine. Well, it's not like I've bought a new PC recently. So if Windows 10 fucks me over, I can always go back to Windows 7. And I can always go run Linux, so my computers aren't useless.
Because remember,
and I'll just buy Macs the next time I need a computer.
All the, back in the 90s when there was real fear of like government crackdowns on internet free speech and, the CBD TPA type stuff, there was a renaissance of people preparing to run alternative systems. We're not really in real danger of that right now. And if danger of that appeared, like if CBD TPA like shit started coming down the pipe in Windows, all the smart nerds would bail faster than you could blink. Something would appear that started working. And then all the not as well-versed in computers people would be able to stand on their shoulders and use the stuff they put together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried about NATO, FEMA death camps coming in with the Windows updates is what I'm saying.
Also, enough money would divert to alternative platforms, right? Like, Chromebook's still out there.
Yep.
Right? OS X is still there. It's not a big issue.
Things of the day. So this is the red wall. And
the mice with the swords?
Not the mice with the swords. So there's this wall here. And this is a photo gallery. had just a area that was painted red, and the rest of it wasn't painted.
Who did that and why?
That was the question. So the red area got covered in graffiti, and they kept covering graffiti up with red. So a guy went and spray painted the word red there.
Oh, was it like an issue? Was that why it's red originally, to cover up a graffiti that
Probably.
they couldn't clean?
So that was interesting.
Because it was a brick wall. So
So then more graffiti appeared, and then they painted it with a different shade of red that looked like shit.
Okay.
So they have this splotchy red covering the new graffiti. So the guy was like, huh. So he painted the word red somewhere different.
There must be an old person who lives nearby who's calling 311 to get the graffiti removers to do something about it.
So sure enough.
This is New York, right? It looks like New York.
I don't actually know where it is.
It looks like New York.
So he does it again. Does it again.
So he just keeps painting the word red.
And they keep painting this darker red until eventually... Red question mark? He paints red with a question mark in black above the red paint on the regular bricks. So they power washed it.
Yeah, instead of spraying.
So if it's on the red paint, they painted a different red. If it's not on the red paint, they power wash it. So then he wrote pressure wash on here and paint red to see what they do. And they painted it red.
Yep. What about this?
Well, so you can, and then the red extended.
Whoa, it was too much.
Red, you went above the line. So he started painting in other places, and eventually the entire thing gets painted red, and it's done. So this is super funny, and I didn't 100% verify that this happened.
How did they not catch this person painting the same place over and over again? You think, aha, the same person is doing graffiti repeatedly in the same plot.
Wait, Scott, you're asking that question.
Put up one crappy camera, you'll catch them.
We know people we know a person, a good friend of ours whose bike was stolen in New York, who found her bike on Craigslist like the next day for sale at an address down the street. There is zero doubt it was her bike, and the cops literally gave zero fucks and said, don't worry about it. Don't call us for this shit. So
there should be a law that they have to do something, and you can sue them if they don't.
Maybe, yeah. So yeah, this is just super entertaining.
I mean, you maybe even could sue the cops. You know how many lawsuits the New York Police Department gets that
maybe
they lose
they'll
and
just settle.
pay? Yeah, they pay a lot of money out. Our tax money is paid to a lot of lawsuits against the cops every year.
Anyway, you got a thing of the day?
I do. So this is actually it's a technology thing, right? Related to my works. I mean, the kind of work that I do, which is making websites. So an issue with websites these days is that the thing people really want to do with websites the most, especially new ones, is they want the websites to be real time. Not real time in the way that,
real-time operating system token bus.
Right. People who don't know, a real-time program, like serious real-time, is for things that need to happen in software within a real amount of time. For example, the example people always use is the pacemaker. If I'm writing software for a pacemaker, it has to figure out when to beat in time to beat. If it takes 10 minutes to figure out the rate at which it should beat, the person is dead.
Now,
right?
you can't make super fast systems that are real-time because it's actually really hard to make real-time systems.
Right. So real-time systems, it's like this has to do its computing within an amount of real time. This must do all this math within 3 seconds, otherwise it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so think
that's a real-time system.
Deterministic processing times and latencies.
Right, that's real-time. So the not real-time is almost all computing, which is the CPU does it as fast as it can.
So you're talking a site like, I need my gauges to be moving around.
Right. So when people talk about real-time web, what they're talking about is basically sort of using a TCP/IP-like push-pull over HTTP.
So like WebSockets.
Right, exactly, right? You visit a website, but, you edit, normally when you go to a website, you fill out a form, you push submit or post, it makes a post, database gets updated, then data comes back. A real-time website, for example, you'd be editing your comment, and every time you backspace, it backspaces, and every time, and everyone else can see this. Like, Google Drive, Google Docs, where you edit a doc, and everyone can see the doc editing, and you can see the doc edited by other people, and it happens as soon as you type. That's a real-time web
That's
application.
a lot of what I'm actually having built right now. And I'm getting rid of old swing clients by making them these real-time web.
So most of the web frameworks, the popular ones out there like Django, which I use, and Ruby, which on Rails, which a lot of people use.
Conrad said Ember is pretty good.
Ember is a different thing. That's a front-end thingy.
Yeah.
So these,
So you're saying like the full... Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about the back-end web frameworks these days that are really popular, right, are based on the model of, request, server renders a response, and sends it.
Yep.
They're not really built for the real-time web, and in order to be built for the real-time web, you need like a fundamentally different sort of setup, right? And the big problem is that even if you were to make a real-time front end, for your application, right? You use an Ember or, an Angular or some kind of JavaScript.
The back end,
and the back end, you set up WebSockets and you set up some sort of API, a RESTful API with a WebSocket connection that gives live updates. Behind that, the database is not really real time. You need some kind of weirdo database. You can't just use a normal relational database because an SQL query, how are you going to know, say, Rim visits the website and he updates the Google Doc and through the WebSocket connection. So Rim's connection to a web server writes to the database. How does my, connection to the WebSocket application know the database got updated? Are all the different, all the web servers communicating with each other sideways? Then how do you scale out these web servers?
Does the database like call a stored procedure that dumps something on a queue that goes out to like other distribution systems?
This guy in Python only, right? Pretty much all you use.
Oh, this thing.
Writing only in Python.
I forgot you showed me this video.
Right. He sets up using Postgres and Python this exact thing, and his code is right? He basically, every view, every URL in his API is a class that has 4 methods: get, put, post, and WebSocket, right? So it's like, he uses workzoig and some other things that, you might not know about to just establish WebSockets really easily. And then in Postgres, he's just using a normal old Postgres connection.
Which is just a relational database. Like, it's not...
Right.
It's not any of this modern, like, NoSQL nonsense. It's a relational, straight-up, like, select star from whatever.
He sets up basically a trigger to say, aha, whenever this table is updated, publish a notification here.
What's he using to publish?
Postgres. Postgres has these features to do this, and he shows you how to set it up to where the application will be notified. So if Rim on his connects to the app with a WebSocket, he sends over some info, he updates the Google Doc, it gets saved to the database with an update statement.
The database then has the trigger.
The
which is like a
database
stored procedure.
triggers, so now over my WebSocket connection, it goes, hey, yeah, this just changed, boop, and now will update my browser immediately as soon as Rim does his thing. And this is the exact technology you could use to make, say, a Jack-like game like we discussed last week.
This is a young person.
And this is coded so well.
This is like a young person's implement, because like I said, the kind of cruftier way to do that is to use like JMS queues and things that are triggered from internal database.
He's using only Python and Postgres, and then it's up to you. All it results in is a RESTful API with a WebSocket connection. So it's up to you on the front end using JavaScript and some JavaScript framework of your choice, which could be anything because it's just a normal old RESTful API. You can use your Embers, your Angulars, your Reacts, your whatever you like to connect to this and make an application out of it.
All right.
So I think this is a really good example of the way of making ultra-modern, websites. If you're going to make a brand new web application today, you should make it this way, and you'll be future-proof for a good long time.
So, our main topic, things going away, things disappearing, because...
We didn't do a meta moment.
All right, the meta moment. The book club book is The Wheel of Time. It just keeps on turning.
I'm getting along.
I'm getting along, too. They're
all at party split up.
One of them's a werewolf, I guess.
Yeah, I got to that part.
Oh, wow, yeah, you caught up, mostly.
Okay.
So in fact, we just met the Tinkers. That's what I got.
Met them, too.
Yep, so we're about the same point, unless you got past the Tinkers.
Maybe.
Yeah?
I don't know.
I'm pretty much in the middle
It's about where I am.
All right, we're about the same point then. Problem is, it's super nice out. I only read a bunch today because I had a subway commute. Hopefully, I won't have that commute the rest of the week.
Since my iPad died and I'm not going to get a new one for a while, I'm doing only reading once I'm in bed. That's a new rule.
Oh, so yeah, you could buy the iPad Pro that's rumored to be coming.
Maybe I will. We'll have to see what it is.
So the rumor is that it's just a gigantic iPad.
How big could it be? Is it big? If it's too big for my messenger bag, then it's too big.
It looks like it's as big as the screen on a MacBook Pro.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I had to go to the Apple store and check it out.
Yeah, it's like
because I had the mini iPad and I really liked that and it was perfectly big enough, but I was kind of thinking about getting the normal size one.
Yeah, because I don't.
But if there's a Pro one, if it's like even harder, better, faster, stronger, in addition to being big, but it's not too big, I could see that working. But I'd be worried. Like, okay, it's in my messenger bag.
Crack.
Exactly. When it's bigger, it's flexier and more.
Maybe just get the Apple Care with it.
Maybe.
The thing is, I need my
How
phone.
much is it going to cost too? If it's $2,000, go fuck yourself.
Because I don't need like that middle ground of like a phablet or a tiny tablet. Because there's 3 tiers of things: tiny phone, normal size tablet, full laptop for doing real work.
Right.
Those are my 3 things.
I'll probably just get I guess they'll come out with iPad Air 3 probably and Mini 4.
Yeah, whatever they come out with, I'll probably just get one.
We'll have to see what the deal is.
Good for airplanes.
Good for playing XCOM.
Even though there's coming rules that
good for Hiroshima Hex.
So if you're traveling and you want to bring your laptop to use at the destination for real work, and you also want to bring your iPad, there's a good chance that the rules are going to change and you cannot check laptops. Period. You have to bring them in carry-on.
All right.
So you'll have to bring your laptop and your tablet through security. You can't check one of them.
All right.
That's very likely to happen.
I don't check any electronics anyway because I don't trust that shit.
I check most of my electronics.
TSA will steal it. It won't be there when you get there.
That's never happened to me. And
I'll check wires and chargers and that sort of stuff.
I check the Marances. I check my cameras.
Yeah, I don't check the camera.
I would not check the Mackie. I would package this up in a box and bring it special. Anyway.
Or at least I would carry it through security, and then once you can be like, all right, put this in the check like a stroller. When people have babies, they do that thing.
We should have a stroller with all our audio equipment in it.
One other meta news, besides 2 other meta newses. So meta news number 2, because we already did book club.
Yep.
PAX is way soon.
PAX Prime, we're gonna be there. Scott will be there for 4 days. Me and Emily will be there for 6 days. It's PAX.
The PAX, the convention that puts all of the conventions behind it. The PAX.
Yep, and it's interesting because across the board, based on a couple conventions that I noticed this happen, and then I started asking around, and it's a pretty, not worrying, but interesting trend. A lot of fan conventions in 2015 had significantly lower attendance.
But not PAX. PAX sells out, boom, every time.
Yep, PAX sold out
PAX
even
on
faster.
the rise, other cons going down. What does that tell you?
So, we're going to be there. Far Future of Gaming on Sunday and Sports Our Games. Very topical now.
I'm going to start working on that right now.
You start working on that. I'll start working on the Far Future one in earnest.
You just a bunch of questions for that one.
Yep. Well, no, what I need to do, because what I wanted to do at MagFest, but we ended up not doing for various reasons, is if we're talking about 30 years in the future, 40 years in the future, I want to have a slide for each one of these things that's here's the state of this thing 30 years ago. So you can see wow, we came from that to today in that span of time. What's that distance into the future of stuff?
Anyway, so the final meta moment is that we have a lot of things on the internet. I mean, if you already listened to this podcast, you probably found us on the internet in a bunch of places, but you're
pro mode already. Most people find our other things and never find this.
But we're in the internet in all the places. I saw a bunch of we've received a more Facebook likes in this week than
really.
We got 4 or 5 likes on Facebook in this week, which is usually as many as you get in a month. So you should find us. There is a place on the internet. We even have a Reddit that's unused.
Yeah, there's
the last post subreddit.
The last post was me saying, "Wow, we have a Reddit."
Yeah,
I didn't even know Scott made this.
We have a subreddit. We've got Google Plus. We got Facebook. We
2
got
YouTube
Twitter,
channels
we got
that
YouTube
are
channels.
packed with content.
We got so much places on the internet that have our stuff on them. You should go and make sure whichever place on the internet that you use. We got a Tumblr Rim Stop doing and everything.
I'm going to start it up again actually because I'm going to put some content out soon that
we got a newsletter that I haven't written in months that I haven't forgotten about.
In fact, I'm going to make sure I don't shit talk on this. What I'm putting together is, we run the panels and workshops department at Kineticon, which happened, a couple weeks ago and was super awesome. It was the best year for panels pretty much ever. And we have all the data on the exact number of people who went to every panel and a whole
Almost
bunch.
all the panels.
Yeah.
We missed a few.
So I was actually able to backfill in we only missed like 7 because people didn't fill them out. And by asking around, people remembered enough to where I have reasonable estimates to fill in those few holes. There's 2 panels I have no idea how many people went to. I'm thinking about emailing the panelists and trying to ask them without them being like, yeah, 108, whatever the size of the room was, 6,000. But I'm going to publish that data to a depth that I have never published it before and take that every other con who doesn't do anything with that data if they even collect it.
It'll be of great interest to a very few people.
Yep.
But yeah, go and follow us on all the internet places that you use, whatever you like, and maybe also share.
Yeah,
I don't want to tell people to share, but I mean, you can
share our stuff because,
especially if we did something that you like, doesn't hurt to share.
Post in the Reddit or whatever.
I mean, I share all your shit. Except
Yeah.
when you tell me to, so this is why I usually don't tell you to. But apparently, telling people to do this works, I guess.
Yeah,
Except
guys,
on me, I'm the opposite.
I'll put it this way: the more you share our shit around and like tell conventions and things, like, "Oh, get these guys," the more we'll actually do. Like, we only do the stuff that we kind of.
But it's
feel
like when someone says, "Please rate and subscribe," I'm like, "Go fuck yourself." But so I don't like to do that, but apparently those are the people who get the most rates and subscribes.
If you want another 1,000 episodes of Geeknights over 10 years,
it'll just happen.
It will just happen. But like a lot of you have been bothering
Send me money to pay so I don't die.
A lot of you have been bothering me about the next Geeknights Presents Utena, and those will come out a lot faster if you guys make us more popular.
That's true.
Like, faster than you think they'll come out. I'm motivated primarily by vainglory.
I'm motivated by not the things Rim is motivated by.
What are you motivated by in terms of Geeknights? I have here in my order. Number 1.
Habit?
1, vainglory. Okay, vainglory. Wanting to eventually make money off of this and not do a normal job.
Boredom, ennui, and habit.
Yeah, habit's a big part, I got to admit.
Habit and ennui.
If you want us to be motivated by another factor and do more content,
it would take a lot of money. I'm not unmotivated by money, but it takes a very large amount of money.
$380,000 a year. We will make Geeknights content 40 hours a week forever.
I would do nothing but make Geeknights.
Yeah, I'd be making, but a lot of the content would be, here's my bike to the beach.
Sure.
Here's my, but we'd make it.
Sure.
Anyway. So a bunch of this other news all was kind of related, which is why we came with the idea of doing the show. So it's just more tech news, but there's a theme. Google is blocking access to an API that I didn't know they had.
I didn't know it.
Because it was an undocumented, unofficial, unsupported API.
How did you even learn about this undocumented API? Did you just inspect Google made an API for themselves. You must have inspected it, figured it out, maybe documented it unofficially for other people, and then people started using it?
That seems to be the case. Sometimes I've noticed Google and other people will publish info like, hey, here's this API, but don't rely on it for anything. It might change or go away. We don't support it.
Well, also, like I just said, if you make a website in the modern way, right, the way I just described with the RESTful API and the WebSocket, someone can just, your whole application is JavaScript. Someone can just make an alternate JavaScript that for your client, for your website, for your API, or they could make a mobile app that just uses your API and connects to your website. They figure it out. It's not hard. It's all public,
Yep.
They can just inspect the packets or if they, look at your JavaScript code, figure out how your API works.
So, Google's autocomplete API apparently is a really cool thing. I didn't know I could mess around with it, but I guess as of August 10th, I won't be able to mess around with it anymore. And they gave their usual, in the interest of maintaining the integrity of autocomplete as part of search. So, what I suspect happened, but they didn't say, so I don't know, is that some people were probably fucking around with these either to mine data about how Google's PageRank stuff works or to otherwise do SEO manipulation. So they were like,
or just have autocomplete on their websites that was as good as Google's instead of the crappy one that they have.
Yep, that is my second idea of what's going on. But it turns out they're not just killing that. That's the one everyone knew and cared about. They're throwing away 80 of these things.
Well, probably because there's not enough users and there's a lot of maintenance to do.
Yeah.
If you ever logged into your Google API, you can get a Google coder developer account. and you get this like control panel of APIs.
I'm looking at it right here. Look at all these APIs.
Right, there's a control panel.
Google App Engine Admin API, version 1 beta 4.
Right, there's
Google Civic Information API.
Right, so you basically enable these individually on your account because they all have their own like terms of service agreements for each one, and then you can get documentation and start using any one of these or all of them. And there's a lot of them, and I'm surprised like how many there are. Think about how many employees at Google are there for each one of these things. So if one of them is not being used or isn't important or isn't in this control panel, you probably shouldn't be using it.
Oh, no, I read that wrong. They are just getting rid of that one, and there are 80 that are supported and a bunch more that are unsupported. Frankly, all the people who are super mad about this, if your business relies on using someone else's undocumented API, you really have a loose understanding of what it means to have a business.
Well, I mean, so many people use beta, unsupported, unreleased, unproduction-ready stuff, right? I mean, Docker, I'm trying to learn about Docker because apparently it's the real deal. It's not, some fad.
Yeah, it seems to be. Actually, my industry, a lot of people are looking at it real close.
It's not a fad. It's a real deal. So I'm learning it right now to be pro at it.
I might ask you questions about it later because I haven't looked at it too much. But
right. So I was watching some video tutorials and things of that nature. And some of the earliest ones, he's like, yeah, Docker's not production ready, but some of these companies that you see logos of right here all these companies you see logos of are using it, and some of them are using it in production, even though we told them not to. And every company was a big major company. Every single one. But the guy who made Docker is standing right there giving this presentation saying it's not production ready. Some of these companies are using it in production. It's like, what the fuck?
Someone posted actually on Slashdot of all things, here's why you don't use these. 1, use Google API service. 2, deploy at customer. 3, wait for it to get canceled by Google.
Yes. So yeah, this happens a lot in computing, right? Is that anything that you develop, any technology you develop, always depends on other people, right? There is nothing that you can make in computing that depends on no company other than your own or no other body of, workers or technologists, unless you are someone like, say, Intel. They make their own chips and their own fabs.
Intel relies heavily on fabrication, manufacturing, research technology from a lot of other sources,
but
not just Intel.
I mean, they're really low level. They're relying on like silicon mines. They probably even own the mines for all we know, right? It's like they have their own C compiler that compiles the micro, right? They do almost everything. They don't rely very much on other people, right?
But you know what they probably rely on other people for? Their internal email.
Probably, yeah.
Like
but
their
I'm talking
source
about
code repositories.
talking about their core product, right?
But that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, if your company just is taking a bunch of other people's services and linking them together, then you can be displaced by anyone.
Pretty much.
So the key is there's always the debate in finance, always build versus buy. Like, do you build something or buy it? And the answer I always give people is, what's your business? Like, what's the thing you're selling? Build that part. Otherwise, you're not selling anything.
Yep.
And
buy everything else.
Yes, buy every other thing.
Because that's not a thing that you do. That way you can put your full efforts towards the thing that you do.
Yeah, don't write an email. Don't write a web framework to
just
host your
Intel,
Uber competitor.
They make chips, right? So when it comes to chips, we just talked about that's all the stuff they build. They build the chips because that's their business. But their email, they don't have some. I hope they don't have some version of Exchange that they made. I hope they're just using Exchange or Gmail or SendMail or something.
Yep. I mean, we're professionals. Even we, back when we had unlimited free time, spent a couple months making Squirrel Mail work with our own mail server, and then we were just like, fuck this.
That's when Gmail wouldn't work with your domain.
Yep.
Anyway.
Those were bad old days.
So yeah, this happens so often in the world of computing where something you use or something you rely on that is made by someone else is end of life, canceled, deprecated, just immediately turned off for whatever reason, right? And there's so many different scenarios that you have to deal with, but you also, many times, you just have to expect it in advance, right?
Yep. Well, not even even if you don't expect it, at least anticipate it, and they are kind of different things. Like, for example, the U.S. military, right? Mm-hmm. We have a plan for what if Canada invades and Mexico nukes Texas. Like, what would we do? we have these plans for every ridiculous.
Those are ridiculous.
Yeah, but
you don't need ridiculous plans.
No, but I'm
like
saying
that.
they have people whose job it is to take a weird scenario and just as an exercise examine, like, all right, what would we do? And obviously, like, the low-ranking dude or the intern is working on the Mexico nukes us plan, but the smart people who actually like matter are looking at the what if Russia for real invades the rest of Ukraine? Like, we have a plan that we'll just enact.
Yep.
If you're a company or just a hobbyist, you should at least have an idea, even if you don't come up with a plan, at least have a list somewhere that says, here are the things that if they change or go away could fuck us. So at least you got it in the back of your head.
Right, so here's some basic strategies, right, for dealing with these sorts of situations, right? So the first situation you have to worry about is the end-of-lifing situation, which is where they're moving on from one thing to another thing has become the hot new deal.
Like Java 7 is end of life.
They're not supporting the old one. So, for example, Windows XP, right? You can still use Windows XP, but Microsoft isn't putting patches out anymore for it. You can't call them up and get tech support for it. It's dead. But you can still run it if you want. So if your application only runs on Windows XP, you're kind of hosed.
So you know what it's like? It's like buying a used car. Like you can't, like you get to the point where you're not going to get any more warranty support. You're on your own, but it'll keep working forever.
Right. So in these situations, right, there's a few things you can do. Number one, you can figure out if it's possible that you could just keep it going on your own, right? If you got a Windows XP machine in a pretty secure, isolated environment, and it's really stable, and you know that, no one can be attacking it, and there's isn't really security threats or anything, and it works with the application as it is, you can just leave it there, the same way you can leave your COBOL mainframe running.
You will still have a long-term problem of eventually computer hardware that it'll run on might not exist.
That is true.
Like, you really expect Windows 1 to run on a model?
Right,
like,
you might not be able to, if this RAM in that computer dies and it's, say, PC 100 RAM or something, you might not be able to get a PC 100 RAM
So you know how you
chip.
mitigate that? You stock up on that shit now, and you have a little mini warehouse of your own that, to keep going another 50 years.
Sure thing.
Like, that's for real. I was at IBM.
People do that.
We had old hardware like that. So you know what we did? We had like 50 or 60 of this one kind of machine just in a warehouse. So that's enough. If we have not, I don't work there anymore.
Even if all of those don't work, you can put together working ones.
And you know what? By the time if
CPU from one, RAM from another.
If that
drive
old
from another.
system hasn't been replaced by the time all that hardware is gone, well, you know what? It's time.
Right. The other thing you can do is when things are end of life, they tell you in advance. People knew Windows XP was dying for a long time. They announce when things are going to die so far in advance.
Yeah, Oracle has already talked about when Java 8's going to be end of life and when Java 9, they talk about this stuff.
So you should be knowing that and being prepared for it when it happens and keeping your shit up to date. You've got a lot. Windows 7 was out, I think, when Windows XP died. You should have been moving your shit to the other platform by then.
Yep.
You have time. Deal with it. Okay, so the other problem is the sudden death, the worrisome one, which is like, you were using this. Let's say you're using a documented Google API, and Google just like, we're turning off YouTube.
Yep. No, so imagine if Google just shut down Gmail. That's a better example.
Sure.
Because Gmail is the core, a lot of big companies use Google platform for mail.
Right. Obviously, this is unlikely to happen, but if it could just say Gmail's off, the end.
Now, the way I look at it, for huge things like that, my risk-reward assessment of that risk itself is, that was a weird way to phrase that, if I'm fucked by it, people way bigger than me are fucked so much more that no one will even notice my problem.
Right, so you don't have to worry too much about that, but let's say you use some other email provider that's smaller, your ISP's email. Also unlikely to go, but maybe it does. Maybe your ISP's like, we're not providing email anymore, right?
Yeah.
So in either case, it's really easy to just back up your stuff in more than one place. Anything that's on, remember, the easiest thing to do to explain the cloud to other people and yourself is take any sentence where you say the cloud. My email is stored in the cloud. Replace the cloud with someone else's computer. My email is stored in someone else's computer. Which means, oh shit, it's on someone else's computer. I better have a copy of it also on my computer. Download your email archive once in a while. You can do it pretty easily. It's not a big deal.
What I'm kind of thinking about doing,
you never know.
I gotta have a partner to do it with, because I'm gonna have when I upgrade computers in September, 2 pretty powerful computers that are pretty rock solid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about, like Drobos, like DASs and devices can kind of do this. You can have two, and if they have the same size, you can tell them to be basically master mirror to each other. So like Scott and I could each buy a DAS or a NAS.
I have a NAS.
Yes, use that. But if we had the same one and we set up some software, they would replicate to each other.
It's not necessary.
No, but I'm saying you could do something like that. I'm thinking about setting that up with two computers just filled with a shit ton of cheapo spinning discs.
Do whatever you want.
And like DRBD A mode.
Sure, whatever you
C
want.
mode, I forget which one's the asynchronous.
Anyway. So, yeah, if you just back your stuff up in more than one place. Like, I have my photos in, like, 5 different services and also local storage. Like, there is no way my photo collection could ever be lost. If, like, Flickr goes down, it's also in, like, Google Plus and Amazon Photos and my computer and my NAS. It's like, I'm safe.
That's kind of why I want a DAS, though, because it's a pain in the ass to use a lot of those services with things that are stored in multiple places.
It's really easy for me to do that.
It's annoying.
Photos are the easiest thing because everyone makes applications that automatically deals with photos.
Yeah, to a point, but...
My music is on Amazon and local storage and NAS, right? It's like I have everything in so many places.
My videos are so much bigger, I'm not dumping those in most of the places I archive things.
Right, anyway. So yeah, backups, right? But another thing you can do is make sure you control your DNS, because if Gmail goes down and your email address is at Gmail, you just lost your actual email address. Even though you backed up your old emails, you ain't getting new ones.
Yeah, Scott and I could point frontrowcrew.com at a different place
I could set
within
up
12 hours.
I could set up a new email server, and my email address would remain the same, and all new emails would go somewhere else. So it's important to control your own DNS entries. Like if your hosting provider shuts down, you can move your DNS and point it at web servers somewhere else, even if you have to host them yourself in your own house.
Now, I've noticed a cool trend just kind of along these lines, because you probably have, if you're a company or something, a bunch of internal APIs and things.
Mm-hmm.
Modern systems, people stopped versioning APIs like, well, there's the new version of the API, get used to it. Instead, they just spin up another API that has the new features and leave the old one up basically forever.
Yeah, I see some people do it that way when they have, like, they rarely make changes to the API and they make big changes. They do it that way, right? Like, Twitter's like, oh, here's the old Twitter API. Facebook actually did this a lot. Here's the old Facebook API and the new one. And then
it's good when you have lots of consumers of the API that are important, but over whom you either don't have a lot of control or you don't really understand their use cases.
Right. But if you, or technology changes, right? It's like, oh, we had this kind of API, but now everyone's using WebSocket APIs. We'll make a new one based on that technology.
But we keep the old one because
we keep the old one because we don't want to ruin everyone's applications, but we're going to turn it off eventually.
Yep.
So, yeah, in those cases, if you're using someone's API like that, you just have to pay attention to what they're doing. So if Facebook changes their API, you just got to keep up with their changes, right? It's up to you. Hopefully they're doing versioning and things like that to, make it so they don't screw you, which they know. The bigger they are, the less likely they are to screw over users.
I'm trying to find this article. So I read an essay. It was an article from a little while ago, but it talked about, because now I want to kind of shift because we've gone on for a full Geeknights episode.
Oh, okay.
But on the consumer side, services disappear all the time, like just basic stuff like so Nintendo had a TV service on the Wii U.
Never heard of it.
That I had never heard of that apparently is shutting down in a few weeks.
Okay.
And apparently it let you like watch TV, but then the Wii U controller would like be your remote control and let you do DVRs on the Wii U and give you a quote second screen experience. And the quote in this summary is, it was awkward and fumbling, and less than a year later, Xbox One came along with HDMI pass-through, voice-controlled TV that made Nintendo TV look silly.
Yes.
So if you're a consumer and you use services, stuff's just going to disappear all the time. You've got to be ready to just be constantly sailing from consumer ship to consumer ship. Like, I bought a Palm Pre. That platform failed. I'm on it. Now I'm on Android. Like, just
you
give
also
up.
just had to do a better job of either not being an early adopter. If you're an early adopter, sometimes you're going to get it wrong.
Which is fine. Just you have to live with that.
Right. If you are an early adopter, you can do a better job of guessing what's going to sink or swim. And if you're in doubt about something sinking, make sure that it's going to be something like Google Glass or Virtual Boy, where even if it dies, it'll still be like this precious artifact, even, that'll be hilarious years and years later. You don't want to buy a Palm Pre that's going to be a worthless piece of silicon.
Well, like
and
VR
plastic.
technology right now, right? Like, there's been all this VR stuff. any VR platform you buy is going to be eclipsed in 3 or 4 years. So if you drop 10, 20 grand on crazy crap, like, make sure it's worth it to you to have had that like bleeding edge experience.
Yeah. Or wait until you see who the winner is and then buy in, right? I didn't buy the iPhone 1, I bought the iPhone 3G. Why? That's the reason.
But there was an article that was analyzing a trend where there's a small percent. So when you think of like a new social network or a new thing, there's like that 5 or 6% of people who use the one that fails.
There were people who used Google Buzz and were into it.
Scott and I and all of our friends.
There are people who used Friendster. Yeah, we used Orkut until the Brazilians took it over.
We used Orkut, Google, like that social network from before Facebook, as our real social network. Like, we all used it on a daily basis for a while.
Mm-hmm.
That was weird to think back to those days. Like,
yep.
So, but this article talked about how it appears, based on some initial studies, that it's basically the same 5 or 6% of people every time.
Every time what? They get it wrong?
Yes. So these people, whatever social network they join, they foretell its doom.
These are people who bought Zunes?
Yes, they choose the technology that's going to fail before we know it's going to fail because they earnestly think it will succeed.
Maybe they just have different taste from everyone else.
Yes. So now the essay was talking about
they have
how
some
like
gene for bad taste.
Yeah, we got to track these people down more. So basically, that's one of the like a comment was like, yes, I really want to study this. If you've used like more than 4 or 5 platforms that have failed, like seriously, email us.
Yeah, if you've used like a Zune and a Palm Pre,
Google Wave,
Google
Orkut.
Wave, and like you were into those things, those were your jam, and you're upset that they all got canceled.
Yep, like you had a Nokia Engage and you're really
your
sad.
Your DNA is valuable to market research.
Yeah, you're the failure case. You are the canary in the coal mine.
So the next time you go to buy something, buy the thing you think sucks, but also tell us the thing that you think is good, so that we know, and then we can make investment decisions. And you should play the stock market also, person who knows what sucks.
Well, I just bought this new MP3 player. Better short the stock of the company.
Or, I'm feeling like I like that MP3 player better. I'll buy the other brand and short sell the one I wanted. That's what you should do.
So I suspect part of it is that those people have niche use cases, because those niche use case people also tend to be split 50-50 in my experience and anecdotal opinion between people who are super pro and have a very specific need that's weird and people who are just dumb and care about stupid
think it's also
things.
sort of a slippery slope, right? You buy one thing that sucks, and that sort of fills gaps in your needs. And then you go to buy something else.
Oh, you buy the thing that fills the gaps
and it
that
fills
no one else
gaps
wants.
in your needs that are different than everyone else's gaps because you already have one failed piece of crap.
Dude, it's like when I had the Palm Pre, like back when smartphones were still like not really like 100% there yet. Because the thing the Pre did is it unified all of your communications into one thread. That was crazy and powerful.
And now Google Hangout sort of does it.
But Twitter didn't run on that thing.
No.
So I couldn't use Twitter. So I would have used Twitter, but because I had a
use web Twitter or text Twitter.
Yeah, that was web browsers didn't work that great back then, and text Twitter, nah. So yeah, that was just interesting. So now I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry as well.
Got anything else to say?
There's one strategy you can use, and I just want to say this real quick. So I use Amazon Web Services a lot, especially at work, and some of the Amazon Web Services, like RDS, is like run a MySQL server. It's like, okay, if they take that away, you can just run MySQL, so it's not a problem. But other things like S3, it's like that's a proprietary thing. S3.
Yeah, if S3 goes down and you wrote an app that like specifically uses it and its APIs.
Right. So when you write your app to use something like S3, you should either A, make your app modular in a way such that you can switch from S3 to some other storage engine that accomplishes the same task, or B, you should probably do both these things. B, write something that has the same API as Amazon S3.
And sits in the middle.
Right? And so that way, if Amazon S3 goes down, you wrote a replacement for it that looks to your application exactly the same as S3, but isn't S3, right? And a lot of people have actually done this. You can go on GitHub, and they're like storage engines that have the same API as S3.
I've done this. So like databases, right? Say you integrate your system, use like an embedded database for shit. So yeah, make it modular to where, yeah, you could stick Postgres or Oracle or like Sybase.
Yeah, there are a lot of things out there that just you can use the MySQL client to connect and talk to them, even though they aren't MySQL. They just clone the MySQL API.
But here's the secret
for using their interface.
You don't need to actually implement all those other ones. Just implement the one you need, but have that wrapper there.
Yep.
That'll save you so much grief down the road.
It's a really good idea.
I found an article. So this isn't the article I read.
This episode's going long.
This is even wider. This is consumers who foretell retail doom.
Wow.
They're talking about like Frito-Lay, like basic consumer goods, but it seems like it's actually the exact same concept. So I'm going to link to this article that I didn't fully read yet, and if I can find the other article, I will link you to it.
Okay.
And now
now I hunger.
I need some food. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.